o Mike, ele é um economista russo que percorreu o mundo. Eu não vou ficar falando muito para dar spoiler, mas ele está vindo aqui, e acho que na hora que ele subir a gente dá as palmas para ele. Vamos deixar eu ouvir ele para a gente dar sequência, tá bom? Muito obrigado.
No, thanks so much, Duval. Can you all hear me? Yeah? Can you all understand me? No, that's the question. No, so, I mean, I was invited here to give this guest speech, and I asked Duval, so what do you want me to talk about? Because I know nothing about education. And he basically told me, talk about yourself. So I have the privilege to talk about myself for half an hour in front of like 400 people. So, you take the chance when you get it. Great, so what I'm going to try to talk about today is how language, particularly English language, can shape your identity. It can make you who you are. And to do that, I'll talk a little bit about me. So let's see if this clicker will work. Perfect. So this isn't me. I think it's actually a girl. But I put this slide here because I am actually originally from Russia. Anyone else here from Russia? I'm assuming no. Anyone been to Russia? Anyone planning to go to Russia? No. Okay. So I was born in Russia. Actually, at that time, it wasn't even Russia. It was the Soviet Union. And then when that whole thing ended, I got to go. We immigrated to Canada. This is a moose. Canada is not actually like that. Has anyone been to Canada? Okay, a lot of people have been to Canada. No Canadians, though. One Canadian? No. Okay. Well, Canada actually doesn't look like that. It looks more like, oops, looks more like this. So it looks like that right now. And yeah, when I got there, I was a kid, and I was 6 years old. I didn't speak a word of English, right? So I didn't speak a word of English, but that didn't stop me from being forced every weekend to shovel the driveway for 8 months of the year for 10 years of my life. So how did I learn English? Well, I guess you guys already saw Power Rangers. I don't know how many people know who do you have Power Rangers in Brazil? Yeah, okay. So I don't know. I wasn't there. I learned English watching the Power Rangers. I learned English and also acquired a propensity for violence, as the Power Rangers stuff. So aside from that, I was a big nerd. I read Lord of the Rings. This was the first book that I read. It was horrible. My father forced me to read it, and I really didn't like it. I still don't know what happens in the book. But I grew up. I had a really, really strong Russian accent, and then it slowly went away. And my whole dream was I wanted to study at Harvard. And so I worked and I worked and I worked, and I practiced the SATs, and I did all these things, and I finally got to Harvard. But before going to Harvard, I was really confused about who I wanted to be. What I want to do? And everyone kept telling me, Mike, you like science, you like biology, you should be a doctor. And so what did I do? I didn't want to go, to Harvard without actually testing it out, without knowing what exactly is it like to be a doctor. And so I got a really interesting opportunity to be a volunteer. And I went to Ghana. Ghana is in West Africa. They speak English there. Has anyone been to Ghana or West Africa? No? So it was great. This is me at 16, by the way. I look a little bit different. And so I went there, and I had the opportunity to volunteer at a hospital. So I'm somewhere there. I very quickly learned that I didn't want to be a doctor, but I had this really, really great opportunity. But one of the things that I really, really learned from that opportunity of traveling was that I really, really liked healthcare. I really wanted to do something in healthcare. And actually what we did was we created an NGO in Ghana, me and my friends. And over the course of college, we went there several times, and we tried to do things in public health care. Actually, when I was in Ghana, I got malaria. It was really bad. And so that was the reason we wanted to come up with innovative ways of trying to prevent malaria and things like that. And it was really, really great. And so at Harvard, I was studying a lot, and I studied to be an economist, actually. I was really interested in economic development. You know, why are some countries really developed, and why are countries that aren't developed? You know, why is it that, you know, Korea, for instance, 50 years ago was absolutely poor, and now it has some of the highest GDP per capita of any country. It's highly, highly developed. I really want to understand that. You know, I loved studying there. I didn't just study economics. I studied all these different things like literature and bioethics. And then I thought, well, you know, if I'm going to work in development, I need to get an internship in development. And if I want to get an internship in some sort of thing in economic development, I have to work for a government. But who is going to take an 18-year-old student who had taken just one course of economics in college? Well, my idea was, if maybe I just send an email to every single small country that I could find in the world, someone would accept me. And so I sent emails to Liberia and the Seychelles and who knows where. And for some reason, the Ministry of Finance of Mauritius, which is an island off the coast of Madagascar, accepted me. I had told them that I was a specialist in economics from Harvard. Remember, I had done one course in microeconomics. And they paid for me, and I worked, and I lived on this island paradise for 3 to 4 months, and I learned about the culture, and I learned about economic development, and made a lot of really, really good friends. So it was good. But I learned a couple of things. I learned that, one, I didn't really want to work in government. So the following summer, I emailed basically another country. I got myself to work in Dubai. I worked for 3 months it was actually kind of government, because I didn't really want to be in government. I worked in a kind of like a private sector kind of thing for the office of Sheikh Mohammed Al Maktoum, so trying to do private-public partnerships. Again, keep in mind I have no experience whatsoever, but I'm trying. And that was a really great experience. But I kind of got bored of it, and I got a kind of a crisis of identity in college. What was I going to do? So I took a year off. And during that year off, I somehow got a job working for a British investment fund in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan, I don't even know, I can't even find it on a map. It's somewhere between Russia and Iran. It's there. It's a really great country. And remember, I speak a little bit of Russian, and you know, what I could say, I tried to say, and I lived there for a couple months, and it was a little bit crazy. We did some really interesting work. We worked on trying to make an investment into a bakery. So every day I would be in a bakery, like a giant factory, and I would just eat cookies every single day. But it was great. I learned a lot about Azerbaijan. I lived there for a while. I improved my Russian. But you know, I then learned that, okay, great, you know, investments, development, that's really interesting, but I'm not having it. This is not something that I really want to do for the rest of my life. And so then what happens? That's where Brazil comes into play, all right? So I say, why Brazil? How did you come here? Well, basically, I wanted to do something a little bit different, and somehow I got this idea that I should come to Brazil and I should do something very different. And that's what I did. I came to Brazil and I became a cowboy for about 4 months. I lived in Mato Grosso. Does anyone know the city of Pontes de Lacerda in Mato Grosso? Yeah. So I lived somewhere there beside Bolivia. And I lived there for 4 months. And this is me with a little cow. This was a white shirt before. I had never ridden a horse, and I had never spoken Portuguese before. And basically, I rode around on horses all day, and I don't know, like dug holes and you know, whatever you do there on the farm. It's me again on a horse. And I basically just learned to speak Portuguese with a little dictionary. Because... agora vou mostrar. Porque após de 4 meses na fazenda, com nada para fazer, sem televisão, sem rádio, você acaba aprendendo a língua. Então, não tinha outras... Enfim. Eu voltei para Harvard, me formei, e depois falei, eu peguei um emprego lá no Vale do Silício. Tá, porque eu gostei de tecnologia, pensei que isso era uma coisa legal para fazer. Fiquei lá no Vale do Silício, morei lá em São Francisco. Foi legal, foi muito, muito legal. Mas alguma coisa estava faltando, sabe? Eu estava viajando pelo mundo inteiro, eu estava lá em São Francisco, em conforto inteiro, não fazendo nada, sabe? Trabalhando 9 até não sei qual, 9 até 8 horas da noite, trabalhando, pagando R$20 para um café hipster de não sei onde. Eu falei, alguma coisa faltando da vida, sabe? Eu lembrei, uau, eu gostei muito do Brasil, por que não voltar? E isso que eu fiz. Eu, na verdade, tinha um amigo, Thomas, ele está aqui, e assim, eu estava conversando com ele e falei, Thomas, eu tenho uma ideia, alguma tecnologia que eu quero fazer em saúde, como celulares, porque eu gosto de saúde, eu gosto do Brasil, e por algum motivo, Thomas convenceu o pai dele de ser um investidor nosso. Ele colocou um pouquinho de dinheiro, eu terminei meu emprego, eu basicamente parei. I'll speak English, sorry, I forgot. Got into it. So I quit my job, and I came to Brazil. And Thomas is also a very interesting guy. He studied with me at Harvard. He's a Brazilian guy, actually. And Thomas learned Mandarin. And he speaks fluent Mandarin. And actually, what he was doing at that time was he was representing Tencent in Brazil, which is like the WhatsApp or of China. He even made a little commercial with Messi here, but no one uses WeChat, so you know how this turned out. Didn't really work out. But anyway, so I came back here, and then tried to become an entrepreneur in Brazil with my limited English, my limited Portuguese capabilities, and again, very, very little experience. So we built this kind of cool technology. I'm not going to go into it, but just so you know what I do, it's like we built basically a kind of a healthcare chatbot. Has anyone heard of this word, chatbot? They're like little robots. They use artificial intelligence, and they talk to people about healthcare. Well, you know, over the last 3.5 years, 4 years, we've, helped this company. It's a social impact company, has helped about 200,000 people. There's about 120,000 Brazilians talking to robots right now. And I only think about half of them actually know that they're robots. But they're doing really great stuff. We're fighting against dengue and against Zika, and we're helping low-income pregnant women during their pregnancy, and we're helping diabetics avoid, various problems. So it was really, really cool. So you can kind of see how a lot of these things came back full circle. It all started out in our little, in our kitchen. This was in 2014, around 2014, just like 2 or 3 people. And then we got our programming team together, and then the company grew a little bit, and then we moved into our much bigger office, and and this is the view from our office. And so basically, this is sort of, as I promised, I got to talk about myself for about 20 minutes, which was amazing. But, I think what this story goes to show you is how language really can change your identity, right? Without language, I would have never been able to travel to all the places that I've gone to. I wouldn't have been able to learn about the things that I liked or that I didn't like in life. I wouldn't have met all these amazing people. I wouldn't have taken the risks that I had taken. I wouldn't be here talking. Maybe I'd still be, I don't know, in Canada, piling off snow or drinking $20 coffees. So that's my little speech. I don't know if it was long enough, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and thank you so much for your time.
Questions. Let's go for a round of questions. I'm going to skip you now because you've asked before. Let me go there and give somebody a chance.
Hi. I would like to know if the NGO that you work at in Africa still exists, and what's the name of it?
Yeah, it exists, but we actually handed it off to another NGO. The NGO was called Ahoto, but one of the things we learned, or that I learned, was that it was, and sorry Duval, it's very tough to do an NGO, it's very tough to keep it going. And so that's why, after learning that, we did a social impact business, which is a for-profit business that has a social impact. And you know, that I think is a very scalable way of doing things. But of my company here, it's called Tanaora, or TNH Health. So that's the name of the company. Yeah.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I've gone through a similar path as yourself, although I come from Canada with all that snow. I worked in Russia. I've lived 5 years in Africa on economic development programs. Worked on a farm in Australia, testing sheep's testicles. See if they had one or two, you know.
I built my life around you, you know.
Yeah. Came to Brazil. And for me, Brazil really is between the despair of Africa and the stupidity of North America. So Brazil is a perfect country to do innovative programs. And really, the question I have for you is, I actually know an organization can probably fund you for your health program. I'm working on digital health too, having a cell phone become a hearing aid.
Wow.
Making it affordable, accessible for everybody. So I know of funds for your program, and probably can help you. So we'll talk later.
Fantastic. Let us talk. You see, we have.
Hi, thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how do you see social entrepreneurship in Brazil right now? I feel like it's a very non-concept abroad, but here is still something very remote. I actually think if you explain to the group as well, I know a little bit of it, but it's always great to expand on the topic, and if your company was welcomed in the country in that structure.
No, very good question. I think the term social entrepreneurship actually really involves anything, any for-profit or non-profit business that has a social component. So it solves a, some kind of a social issue, be it education or healthcare or security or infrastructure, energy. There's another term which is called sort of social impact businesses, which are not necessarily non-profits. So these are companies that make money, but they have a certain impact on the social fabric of society. They actually help society. So it's not just a company that is for the rich and helps the rich. It goes towards what's called the bottom of the pyramid. So in Brazil, the classe E, D, and C, if you would think about that. And so even though it's something that's quite popular abroad, in Brazil, I would say it's actually becoming much more well-known. You have a couple of very well-known incubators and accelerators that support social entrepreneurs, such as, for instance, one called Artemisia. I was there last week, and Facebook just launched a joint venture with Artemisia, and there was 10 or 12 new social impact companies at Facebook headquarters here in Brazil. There's another incubator called Quintessa. And actually, the interesting thing is that more and more money, investment, is going to social impact. You're starting to see that more and more people don't want to just invest their money into the stock market or into the bank. They actually want to get back a certain return that helps the environment or helps those less in need. And the total amount of that money is about globally almost $300 billion per year. Obviously not all of that is here in Brazil, but this is one of the what is called asset classes that is most likely to grow over the next, that is actually going to grow the most over the next couple of years. And so actually I think Brazil is one of the best places for you to become a social impact entrepreneur. There's more and more money flowing in, and obviously the social opportunities available here, the kinds of problems that we can solve are very, very huge. So I'm actually very, very optimistic about it. But anyway, sorry for the long answer, but hopefully that clarified.
Michael,
Yeah.
good afternoon. Firstly, I think we hope our country will be world championship in your country this year.
Fantastic.
My question is, what is your maybe the worst and the best situations that you have lived around the world that you could share with us?
It's a good question. The best and the worst, because there's been a lot of them, right? I mean, I guess you have worst as like getting malaria in Ghana. You know, the best is like, you know, talking in front of all of you, awesome people. No, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of stuff. I think, you know, I'm trying to think of some really, really good stuff. You know, I guess best situations would be just some of the crazy things that you do on your travels, like, you know, in West Africa, going and you know, see some waterfalls in the middle of nowhere, or, you know, learning to scuba dive in Mauritius, or you know, meeting all types of very interesting people in Azerbaijan, you know, and here in Brazil, being able to actually build an organization like this and working with wonderful people. You know, I guess there have been bad situations, but, you know, I'm an optimist. So, you know, as you can see, I just maybe it's actually stupidity. Just keep going, even though I shouldn't be allowed to do things. And so, you know, I mean, I guess being an entrepreneur as well. If any of you are entrepreneurs or thinking of being entrepreneurs, is you have a horrible situation every single day, and you have a good situation every single day, and you kind of have to control it and go with the flow and meditate a lot, and then everything works out. Yeah.
Só mais duas perguntas, tá? Porque a gente também tem que seguir. Eu já tenho aqui e aqui, desculpa. E aí a gente vai ouvir os alunos e a gente faz mais uma rodada, tá bom? Obrigado.
I'd like to ask you, how did you manage to learn English from Power Rangers, or learning Portuguese from a small dictionary, and whatever you can tell us about learning with whatever we have?
Yeah, so I mean, when I learned English, I was really, really small, and I know it was horrible. I remember that they made me go to kindergarten or whatever, and, you know, imagine I was just, you know, flown over to another country, didn't speak the language, and I basically spent a year just crying all day, and my mother had to sit with me in the room. And then eventually, you know, small children, they're like sponges. They pick it up and things like that, and you make friends, and it all works out. You know, I don't think though that my English language skills, my ability to write, read, actually got much better towards high school. When I got that goal of I'm going to try to go to Harvard, right? Then I forced myself to read and practice and write, and then that actually kind of caused me to improve a lot. And then at college, it actually got a lot better, right? Actually, I don't remember anything about economics, so please don't tell that to any of my professors. I have forgotten everything, but the only thing that I've kept is the ability to read and write and things like that. And in Brazil, I'm not actually a very good language learner. I used to speak French, but I forgot all of it. This was 10 years of me trying to learn French. Like, this was the Canadian government trying, and, you know, please, I've forgotten all of it. And I think the only reason here in Brazil is because, one, I had the desire, you know, two, I didn't have any other options. And, you know, when you're sitting on a horse for 4 hours, you just kind of ask, you know, o que é isso? Como isso chama? O que é isso? Isso está certo? And the other vaqueiros, or peões, or whatever you call them, I don't think they spoke Portuguese particularly well. They didn't speak that much. But they're like, good. Or I would just look at their faces, so I'd say something and they'd be like, what? And then I tried to say it again. So that's good. And then, of course, you know, I improved it. because I took this year off before I graduated, so I had 1 year, and I went back to college, and I took a class on Brazilian cinema. So I watched films, and I tried to write, and then just learning in the day-to-day, right? Like going to meetings and things like that, and that's how I learn. So, yeah.
All right, then. Thanks, Michael, for your speech. Over here. My question is about, well, the last place you came here, was Brazil.
Yeah.
And, well, I believe you have a lot of
Yeah.
lot of reasons to come.
Yeah.
But my question is especially about Brazil, because a lot of people over here are a bit disappointed with our government, and I believe a lot of people that come to ask you what you find about Brazil, they say, I don't like what is happening over here, and for sure you have another perspective, different from all of us. And, well, your last place, the place you choose to be at the moment is Brazil. So what could you say to well, show us your point of view for the good benefits to be in Brazil, and why we need to love where we are?
No, it's a very good question. I have this conversation with taxi drivers or Uber drivers every single time I enter. So it's always goes, "Where are you from?" "Canada." "Why are you here? What are you doing here?" You know, then I have to explain. You know, I think there's a lot of things in Brazil that stand out, right? So Brazil is a very entrepreneurial place, right? People are very entrepreneurial, very creative, much more than they would be in a place like Canada, you know, or most of the United States. There's obviously some areas which are better. So you have people who are very motivated, very creative, and it gives you the chance to really build things. You know what I mean? That would otherwise be very, very difficult to do. I think aside from that, it's a very nice place in terms of a culture, right? Like you go to Canada, no one's going to talk to you, right? Like the taxi driver is not going to talk to you. So so you know, you have all the comforts, healthcare, education, security, right? But that doesn't necessarily make you happy. Doesn't necessarily make you fulfilled in life. It may at a different stage of your life, but at that point it doesn't. And Brazil has this cultural thing, this kind of thing that makes it a great place to be. And you know, I would say, aside from that, aside from the fact that you know you have really, really good people, a lot of potential, and then you know the culture and things like that, I'm very optimistic. I've always been optimistic. You know, I've seen the last 4 years here, and it's been a complete change, right? Like 4 years ago, you know, people weren't really even, I mean, people were, but they weren't really on the internet. People weren't, you know, reading and watching videos. There weren't discussions that you have, you know, that are having right now. People didn't talk about politics, you know, and now you have Lava Jato and everyone's talking about it, and people have opinions about politics. And then you have, all of a sudden, 4 years later, a whole generation of youth. I'm seeing all these entrepreneurs coming in, and you know, young guys, 19, 20, 21, who are launching companies and you know, doing things, and that's inspiring. You know, as an outsider coming in, I saw that change happen. And now, as the economy is recovering and things like that, I see a really, really great perspective for the next 4 years. You know, I think that's my perspective. Yeah.